Hello and welcome to another short video just illustrating another of the capabilities of the CompuTrainer cycle trainer. This time looking at the SpinScan facility, which analyses a rider's pedal stroke. And you see the graph dumbbell shaped at the moment appearing here, and this is a representation of the torque being applied to the cranks by the rider, and therefore the thrust delivered, or the forward thrust on the bicycle through the back wheel. In a perfect world, this graph would be a perfect circle, and that would be the situation if we were looking at the output from an electric motor, but obviously a cyclist isn't an electric motor, and our limbs and muscles don't work in a perfectly efficient way. But this is a way of looking at how efficient we are or aren't compared to an electric motor. So we see below the graph here, these are the figures, the SpinScan numbers. We get figures for the left and the right legs, and ideally those numbers should be equal, and a fairly smooth road cyclist would tend to pedal with a SpinScan of approximately 70 to 80 generally. So that's what we can see beneath the graph. It also shows what you can see. It says ATA, that's the average torque angle, and that's represented on the graph by the red lines, which you can see at positions about 100 degrees on both sides. The most efficient ATA would be 90 degrees, because when the cranks are at 90 degrees is when the rider has the greatest mechanical advantage, and therefore that's really the best time to be pressing on the pedals, is with that sort of average torque angle. See at the bottom of the section beneath the graph the percentage of watts. At the moment it's showing 50-50. It will vary by 1 or 2% either side, so if you could see that there was a huge imbalance there, that would be a cause for concern if the rider was producing perhaps 55 to 60% of their power with one leg only. So that's a very useful thing to be able to look at. On the right hand side of the screen, starting up at the top, we've got the elapsed time, the gradient that the rider is riding against, and the distance covered. And then we got speed, current speed, average and peak, and then watts, current, average and peak, cadence, current, average and peak, and heart rate, current, average and peak. And you can see there my heart rate at the time during this little test was just 115. I'm just trundling happily along, just producing some data. At the bottom of the screen on the right there's also a calorie counter and a few other little bits and bobs which I'm not going to worry about. So going back to the graph, the 0 position up at the top is when the right hand crank is at top dead center. So what you're seeing on the graph is the torque in relation to top dead center. On the right half of the graph showing the right pedal, and the left half of the graph showing the left pedal. So I'll just be quiet for a moment or two, let you digest what's going on the screen there. Just perhaps mention the RRC figure in the bottom right hand corner. That's just saying what the current CompuTrainer calibration is. And shortly we'll switch to another display. Okay, these bar graphs here, each individual bar graph represents the torque, and each bar represents 15 degrees in the pedal cycle. So the left hand half of this graph, those peaks there with the peak in the middle just to the right of the red line, that's representing the left leg, and the right side representing the right leg as you're facing it. The vertical red line is indicating the average torque angle for both, or the left on the left side and the right leg on the right side. So we should be looking to have that vertical line bang in the middle. If we're applying the maximum pedal power at the most mechanically efficient point in the pedaling cycle. And you can see how those bars are fluctuating slightly. Beneath that we've got all the numbers that we saw on the previous graph, just arranged differently, so I won't go through all those individually again, but we have the SpinScan numbers in the middle, the elapsed time on the right, and then the speed, watts, cadence and heart rate information beneath that. So we can see that this is a rider just rolling steadily on, and just illustrating here, the rider's now increased the pressure on the right side. We saw that right side graph up, and now the more pressure being applied to the left side, and we're getting an imbalanced wattage split, 59 on the left and 41 on the right. So this rider is pedalling now predominantly with the left leg. And then just ease right off, you can see the average torque angle lines moving as the rider changes his pedaling method. And you can also see in the centre the SpinScan numbers varying accordingly. This rider is now producing, for that moment there, was producing just under 300 watts, and you could see that the SpinScan becomes less efficient. We're now well over 300 watts. It rescales itself automatically. You can see a very different picture. This is a rider who's actually standing up on the pedals at about 300 watts, and you see the SpinScan score has dropped down to about 60. It's less efficient, and they're producing quite a high wattage, a lower cadence of about 76, but a very different picture in terms of how that power is being produced when the rider's standing. It's inherently less efficient. So the rider's power output has now gone back down to the mid 100s, just under 200 watts. They're pedaling more steadily, and the SpinScan number has gone back up to about 75. So you can use this to look at how efficiently you're pedaling, try and work on a smooth and efficient pedal stroke, to look, I think quite importantly, at the left-right pedal balance. That's always worth trying to get right, and generally to see exactly what you're doing. And you can see the same data in two different ways, and you just work with the one that suits you best. So I'll sign off now. I hope that's been of some interest. Bye.